I am Karen Sullivan, publisher of Orenda Books. For those of you who don't know, we're a small independent publisher. We're based in London. We publish literary fiction with a heavy emphasis on crime thrillers, and half the list is in translation. Last year, we won the CWA Crime and Mystery Publisher of the Year, and we have just been shortlisted for Small Publisher of the Year at the British Book Awards, which is very exciting. But tonight we're heading to Norway and to America with Abby to chat to two immense talents. And I am really thrilled to introduce you to long-standing member of Team Orenda, Thomas Enger, and the brilliant Jørn Lier Horst. And together they have created one of the most exciting series of thrillers around, with unforgettable characters, a sublime sense of place, and superb sophisticated plotting. The twists are breathtaking. For those of you who haven't read it, you need to pick it up. This is really blockbuster Nordic Noir, and together these authors are really making ripples in the crime community. We published Death Deserved, which I think should be behind me, in 2020, and despite hitting the shops about 2 minutes before they closed for good, they attracted legions of new fans and got the series off to a fabulous start. And they've more than matched its genius with Smokescreen, which we are launching here tonight. So Smokescreen has been translated by Megan Turney, who is here, and this is her first full-length translation. I can't tell you how beautifully she has captured the voices of both of these authors and Blix and Ramm. And we're so excited to continue working with her across the series. She'll be joining us towards the end of tonight's event, so stay tuned. Leading the proceedings tonight is the wonderful Abby Endler, American crime reviewer and Nordic Noir expert. Her influential Crime by the Book blog has amassed tens of thousands of followers, and although I hate to use the word influencer, Abby is very much that. Sorry, Abby. I remember being at, I think it was one of Thomas's events actually, the Edinburgh Book Festival, and I was so surprised to find so many Americans at this event. And when I got chatting to them after that event and across the week, I discovered that they'd been inspired to attend by Abby's Instagram and blog from America, which is pretty impressive. But Abby has been a friend and an amazing supporter of Orenda right from the beginning. She even presented our books in Chicago at a sales conference when I couldn't make it. By day, she's a publicist for a division of Penguin Random House, and we will forgive her for that. She has interviewed a huge number of authors, including Lars Kepler, Camilla Lackberg, our own Ragnar Jonasson, Nesbo, Sarah Bladel. So I think we're in really good hands tonight. Okay, so signed copies of Smokescreen are available from our partner bookshop, Warwick Books, and you can contact them at warwickbooks.net or info@warwickbooks.net. I know I've said this a lot, but it's so important to remember that we need to support independent bookshops, not just to ensure their survival, but to provide readers with an ongoing wealth of diverse reads, real variety in what we read. There's nothing like an independent bookshop for hand selling and highlighting books that we might otherwise have missed. Brilliant books that really stand out from the crowd. We're really, truly honored to work with this bookshop too. Mog and Pauline, we visited them on an Orenda Roadshow a few years ago. Thomas, you will probably remember that. And they are definitely top of their game. We've also got a great audiobook coming out from Ulvers Crofton. It's one of the first books in our brand new partnership. Before we get started, I would like to thank the Norwegian Embassy in London, the Norwegian Consul in Edinburgh, and Nurla for ongoing massive support on all fronts, not to mention a translation grant, and for cheerleading constantly. We so appreciate it. But now I'm going to hand things over to Abby. If you have a question, use the question Q&A facility at the bottom of your screens, and we'll leave lots of time to go through them. So Jørn, Thomas, and Abby, you're up.
Thank you so much, Karen. I promise I did not pay her to introduce me so beautifully. That was wonderful. Oh my gosh. Well, Thomas, Jørn, it's such a pleasure to join you both virtually. You both know I'm just a huge fan of both of your work individually, and I am completely obsessed with your amazing new series. And this book, Smokescreen, is fantastic. So I can't wait to discuss it with you both. But I thought maybe just to get started, just on the off chance there's anyone watching who is unfamiliar with one of you or maybe both of you. I would love to hear from both of you just a little bit about yourself. Tell us about yourself and how you got into crime writing. And Jørn, can I ask you to kick us off here?
Yeah, okay. I just turned 50. But for almost 20 years, I has been working as an investigating officer. That's my background. I left the police in 2014, and I've been a full-time writer since then. But I think that background, being an investigator myself, is my strength as a crime author. Through that work, I have been to these crime scenes. I've met those people. I know what this is all about, and that is bringing, I think, some kind of authentic nerve into my stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe a sense of true crime, and true crime is what's really popular right now. So, but I'm in total, I've written like 55. Sorry?
7,000 books now, isn't it? Thereabouts?
More or less. Now 55 books. I also write for kids, children books. So it's a big number, and I think all my books are still in sale in Norway. More than 50 novels.
Amazing. That's incredible. Well, thank you for that introduction. And Thomas, can I ask the same question of you? Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into crime writing.
I got into crime writing at the age of about 20, I think. That was, my interest for it started in my early teens, I think. And I read a lot of crime fiction novels, and I'd always enjoyed the physical act of writing myself. I enjoyed writing those theses at school, you know, where you could assemble sentences together and try to make sense of them. So when the urge for me kind of emerged to try to write something for myself, the leap to crime fiction wasn't really a huge one. That was the genre that I enjoyed reading. It kind of I just wanted to see if I could write a whole story of about 200 pages. That was kind of the motivation. I wanted to see if I could do that.
Yeah.
And of course the first attempts that I did at writing was, I mean, they were super crap. So but I spent about 15 years trying to kind of mold my craft. That sounds a bit pretentious, but it was kind of my school to write. Just try to write books. I kept getting new ideas. I wanted to explore those, it took me 15 years before I got my first book contract. But yeah, it was really worth the wait. And besides that, I have a background as a journalist. I was a journalist for about 10 years. I've studied history and I've studied sports as well. So yeah, and I'm also I wouldn't call myself a musician, but I do play the piano and I do compose the occasional song as well. So
you have music available on Spotify. You're a musician.
Well, yeah.
Well, we have something very special to talk about this evening. We have your brand new book, Smokescreen, here. And in case people have not read the book yet, this will be totally spoiler-free. No spoilers in this event, I promise. But I would love just to kick us off here. Let's see, maybe Thomas, could you, in your own words, tell us what is Smokescreen about?
Oh God, I have to read on the back.
You can do this, and Jørn, you can jump in too if he needs some help.
It's like you said, it's the second installment in the series, and it kind of just starts where that is the first one that Jørn is holding up. That Smokescreen starts basically where Death Deserved ends. It ends and begins on New Year's Eve, where an explosion rocks the center of Oslo at precisely midnight. And of course, everyone thinks that this is a terrorist attack because it's a bomb, in the middle of Oslo. And among the victims of that explosion is a woman who was the mother of a young girl who went missing 10 years before, two-year-old Patricia. And of course, as everyone thinks that this is a terrorist attack, you said that it was going to be spoiler-free. Not sure if I can keep that promise.
Just try your best.
Yes, I'm going to try my best. But obviously, that woman being one of the victims, quite quickly, Alexander Blix, the main character, the police officer, he thinks that her being one of the victims might have something to do with the explosion, because no one is taking responsibility for that explosion, which is, the normal MO of a terrorist organization. They would normally do that. Nothing happens of the sort here in Oslo. Yeah. So the question is, why was there an explosion? And was there really something linked to that old case of the little girl going missing?
Now, I know readers are always so curious to know, and this might be a tricky question, but can you identify a particular moment that sparked the idea for this book? What was the inspiration behind it? And I will leave this open to either one of you who would like to answer.
Would you like to try, Jørn?
Well, I guess the case with Madeleine Mccann has been in the back of our heads while we were writing this little girl disappear. Nobody knows what happens. But we didn't have that story clear when we finished the first novel. So we did it kind of difficult for ourselves because the first novel ended with a big bang, and we had to pick that up in the next story. So I think the big bang kicked it all off, and it was Thomas's idea.
Yeah, that's true.
Very good.
When we went in Norway to the very first event that we did together with the first novel, and people in the audience that read the book, and they said to us, well, you cannot end a book like that without having some kind of explanation to that in the second book. Mm-hmm. And at that point, we hadn't started writing the second book yet. So we kind of felt that we owed it to the audience to have some kind of, obviously when something explodes, it could also be like fireworks, so that was kind of my idea that we would play a little bit with the reader's mind there. Is it explosions? Is it an explosion, or is it just fireworks? But a lot of people were sure that it was an explosion, so we kind of went with that.
But as a
go ahead.
No, as I also remember, as I remember, Thomas. So what we wanted to do was to write a kind of different novel. The first novel, Death the Surf, is very fast. The tempo is there. There's a serial killer. There's no less than 10 killings. We want killings, killing each 25 pages or something. So this new novel is more low key or is more traditional Nordic noir than the first one.
Yeah, that was something that
is
really
that right,
interested.
Thomas?
Yeah, yes, because we didn't want to kind of create a series where the reader would kind of know what to expect. Mm-hmm. If we start with the first book that is a serial killer novel, and we do that for the second one, then people would expect to have something of the sort in the third. Now it's kind of more up to us what we're going to do in the third, or So it was a very conscious choice not to go in the serial killer direction with Smokescreen.
Well, I was so curious about that because I was actually kind of expecting that this might be another serial killer book. And I was so excited actually that it was not at all what I expected, but it still has, I think, the page turning quality of the first book, which you carried through that tone that makes it so readable. But I loved that you surprised the reader and gave them just quite different subject matter. And I think that's so interesting because my next question to you was going to be, how did you kind of decide to pair, the bombings, that plot line with this disappearance? And I think that's so interesting that you were inspired by the Madeleine Mccann mystery a little bit, because I know I've listened to a whole bunch of true crime podcasts about that case, and I wonder if you can share what was it about that case that particularly, caught your attention?
Well, I think that in any case where you have a missing child, it kind of everyone wants to know what happened, and in the case of Madeleine Mccann as well, you have that question as she hasn't been found. You wonder, is she still alive out there somewhere, and where is she? What does she look like? So that is what in the missing case person in this book, we quickly start to play a little bit with where is Patricia, because there is no body of her either. She's just gone missing, so we don't know where she is. But we know that the mother was a bit of a nut case. I don't know if that's nut job is not the right phrase. Yeah, she wasn't a very good person, to put it that way. So we basically just went with that as kind of like not a guiding light, but
that's like the thing it hinges around. Yeah.
But I think the interesting thing is that this is a cold case meeting a new case, and you have to put all those that clockwork to fit together.
Yes.
And what is with cold cases, we learn from books and even more from American movies, that the first 24 hours is very important. But as the time goes by, that can also be helpful to the case, because new happenings can sort of blow up new, literally blow up new information. That is what's happening in Smokescreen.
Yeah, absolutely. And oh my gosh, I have so many questions for you guys. But before I go any farther, we have to talk about your protagonist, because I think one of the biggest selling points of this series to me are the characters of Blix and Ramm. I love these characters so much. And I would love if you two could introduce us to these protagonists. If the people watching right now were meeting these characters for the first time, how would you describe them?
First of all, Alexander Blix is a policeman, and Emma Ramm is a journalist. So the idea that we had when we started working together was that Jørn was going to write the policeman and I was going to write the journalist because of our backgrounds. That never kind of materialized. We've been writing on each other's characters all along. But Alexander Blix is a very how do I put that? Is a very righteous policeman, very thorough, very fair, and at the same time he's kind of haunted and traumatized by an incident which happens in the first book. He had to shoot and kill someone during a hostage situation, and that has kind of scarred him for life. That incident, and it ended his marriage as well after a while. So he's a guy with a lot of, how would you say, baggage, emotional baggage. But at the same time, he has a good instinct for solving crimes. He's a very good policeman. Whereas Emma Ramm she's about 26, 27, isn't that right, Jørn?
Yes.
Yeah, and in the beginning of these stories, she works as an online blogger. She blogs about celebrities, but she doesn't want to do that. She wants to write about more important issues, and through the first book, she kind of realizes that crime stories is what I'm good at covering. She has a very tragic past. She lost her parents really, really early, and she grew up with her sister living with her grandparents basically, and her granddad became ill quite soon. He had dementia, so he was gradually deteriorating. So she didn't have the best start in life, but there is since this is a spoiler-free.
I'm keeping it challenging. There's a tragedy, we can say that.
Yeah, and there is something that links Emma Ramm with Alexander Blix. So that was quite right? Yeah.
And in series like this, I like to read novels that not just tell me what how the policeman solved the case, but also what is him, how he developed, how he is changing from almost from chapter to chapter, but at least from book to book. From the first book to the second book, Blix is kind of he's looking at Emma Ramm almost like his daughter, and he's taking care of her, and he is kind of being her police informant. So it's kind of father-daughter relationship between those.
Yeah. And I think there's something really special about crime books that have that sort of unlikely pair of people who end up, investigating crime fighting together. And I love the partnership between Alexander and Emma because it's unexpected, but there is that kind of almost father-daughter relationship there. And now, Jørn, I'm so curious to hear from your perspective because I think all of the books of yours that I've read, including this series, I think that they portray police officers really in a non-stereotypical way. Sometimes we read crime books that have the detective who is just drinking all the time and just very haunted, has all these sort of stereotypical problems. And I wondered if you could speak to us a little bit about your experience in the police and how do you wish to portray, the police officers in your crime novels? Because I think that they all seem like quite nice people who are very hardworking and really trying their best. And I wonder if that is inspired by your own experience in that industry.
Absolutely. I do have another series called Wisting, which was also shown at BBC4 last year. What is special with Wisting is that there's nothing wrong with him. There's no illness. He's not drinking too much. There's nothing wrong with him. And those books are very, very strict, not realistic police procedure. So in this series, it was kind of refreshing for me to start this series off with the hunt for a serial killer. Those are seldom in Norwegian police work. So to leave that kind of hva heter det, Thomas? Altså tvangstrøye.
Like a constraint, kind of like
a jacket.
Yeah.
To leave that jacket and just tell a very compelling story was refreshing for me. But Blix is he's still a realistic policeman. That is, we are giving the readers an inside view of policing, inside view of the policeman's mind.
Yeah.
How he how he looks at the society and how he looks at this case, how the thoughts are going through his mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. And I think that Blix is balanced out so well by Emma. And Thomas, my question for you would be, I mean, you had a career in journalism. Obviously, I don't believe you were doing celebrity blogging when you were in journalism, but I would love to know, I mean, how much did you draw on your own experience in that field when kind of crafting Emma's character?
Not that much, I would say. First of all, because blogging wasn't even a thing back when I was working as a journalist. I mean, back in the late 1800s.
Sure, 200 odd years ago.
Yeah. And at the same time, she's a woman and she's 26, 27 thereabouts, and obviously that's not something that I can speak too much about. So, but I think that for a journalist, as there would be for a cop, it's always about your instincts and your ability to ask the right questions at the right time in order to get to the truth. And that I just wanted Emma to be, again, as with Blix, and as with a lot of stereotypical crime fiction characters, they're always so flawed, they're always drinking, they're always, doing so many bad things that they shouldn't do, but they're brilliant at their jobs and they get results, all of that stuff. I think it's, much more interesting to see someone who has been through that hell that she did growing up, but she came through the other side quite young with her wits about her. I mean, she's kind. She's a kind person. She's a bit how do you say, withdrawn. She's a bit on the shy side. She likes to sit and work at a coffee shop, but in the corner, away from other people. That kind of personality. But she has that drive to get to the truth, which is universal for any good crime fiction character. You need that, and it doesn't really matter if it's a journalist or a policeman. It could just as easily be a real estate broker. For that person needs to have motivation to get to the truth, and that Emma has in spades.
Absolutely. And I love the way that you get kind of the insider's perspective in the police force, and then you have kind of the outsider in Emma, and you see how the two can work together. And I think that partnership is just amazing. And now in this book, you guys really put your characters through the ringer. They both have had lots of tragic stuff happen to them at this point. And I really felt while reading this book that I really felt for these characters. Emma has just been through a tragedy. Alexander is still, I think, grappling a bit with, the divorce and what's going on in his personal life. And I wondered, as writers, is it challenging to put yourself in the shoes of these characters when they're going through such tragic things? Is that an emotional process for you?
I don't know what it's like for you, Jørn, but
I
yeah. Go ahead.
No, I'm leaning on my experience as a police officer, because in my work, part of my work was to stand face to face with other people's in their most tragical or special moment in their life. Part of my task was to talk to people who were left behind in murder cases. So also my task to talk to the people who committed these crimes, to interview the people who have committed killings and other brutal crime. So I think to stand face to face with all those real feelings is something I bring into my authorship, and kind of make. I've been in those footsteps, so it's kind of
I totally understand.
I think that as it is for all authors, we need to try to imagine what it's like to be in these people's shoes.
Yeah.
Try to understand their motivations for why they did what they did, and what they're going through. I mean, if they're a victim, and all of that can be really tough at times. I spent 6 years writing about a journalist in my previous series who had lost his son in a domestic fire. So every single workday, I was trying to put myself in his shoes, in his mind, trying to really give that man a voice and give him thoughts and emotions, and just trying to guide him through life step by step. And that was extremely difficult for me. For me as a person, to go into that world while my kids were running around my feet, yeah. So that can be tough. Indeed. But I think that I've grown a bit thicker skin over the years. I've been doing this now for 11 years, and I work almost every day, every single day, about creating characters, creating stories, fates, all of that, all happening all the time.
Yeah.
So I deal with that, through exercise and through just compartmentalizing my days. It's work, and then it's leisure, and yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, I think we also have to talk about Oslo itself, because obviously there are so many of us who, probably most of us right now, are unable to travel. We can't go anywhere. And I think one of the great pleasures of reading is that it lets us armchair travel all over the world. And obviously, I wish I could be in Oslo right now, but I can't. So I can read your book. And I loved that Smokescreen takes readers around the city. Obviously, we're going around the city on the heels of a serial bomber, so that's pretty scary. But I loved seeing glimpses of different parts of Oslo. And I wondered if you could speak to, what makes the city of Oslo such a compelling place to set this thriller? Why choose to set your book in Oslo and not somewhere else?
Oh God, that is a hard question to answer, I think, because it's
for me, earlier my other books, those are from my hometown. I live almost half an hour south of Oslo, small town, 60,000 people living here. So that is kind of small town crime novels. Mm-hmm. So for me, again, it was refreshing to set these stories in the biggest city. But Oslo is not a big city, but is bigger than Larvik. So
yeah.
the biggest we have, yes.
Yeah, it is. No, but I think that I was living in Oslo as well at the time, and authors tend to write about the places they know and have visited. But at the same time, for a story like in Smokescreen, it fits really well that it's happening in a bigger city, precisely because, as the title suggests, someone is trying to cover up something here, putting out a smokescreen for those who are trying to get to the truth. And that is easier to do in a big city. It's easier to hide. It's easier to hide things or to hide clues or whatever you want to hide. Yeah, that
and it's easier for the police officers because there's more surveillance cameras, and there is more. So it's easier to follow the footsteps through a big city like Oslo.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's always. I mean, the question of setting has its advantages and disadvantages. Whether you place your story in a small town or in a big city. Yeah.
Well, I've got loads more questions. I'm just going to remind the audience, if you have any questions for Thomas and Jørn, please feel free to drop them in the little Q&A box on the bottom of your screen. We will definitely be saving time for audience Q&A here. But I have to ask what is probably the number one question on everyone's mind. I mean, you both have very successful writing careers on your own, separate from one another. How did the idea to write a series together first come about? Tell us about that.
Okay, let's do. Let's see if we remember this correctly, because Jørn does not remember giving me a call back in, when was it, 2012, I think it was, when he suggested that we write something together. And at that point, I was in the middle of my Henning Yule series, and I kind of had to finish that first, and Jørn also after had 1,000 books to write after that phone call. So we didn't start working together then and there, but the idea for us to do that began with that phone call. And then of course we have known each other for a long time, and we've met on God knows how many festivals, and we live quite close to each other as well. So I think it was when we went to Canada together.
Yes, that
right. That was when we first started plotting, right?
Toronto,
yes. Yeah.
So yes.
Yeah.
So Toronto or
it was Ottawa.
It was a great festival. We were on stage with the woman who was the most known woman back in the 90s. I'm talking about Marsha Clark from the O.J. Simpson case. She was prosecutor back then, turned on writing. So she was on stage, and so was Peter Robinson, one of my favorite Canadian, British authors. But that is right. That is where we started to really talk about this series.
We had some time together. We went to Canada together, so yeah. But it wasn't before, and after that trip to Canada, we started having sessions where we brainstormed. We talked about what we wanted to do with our collaboration. But it wasn't until after the summer in 2017, actually, when we both had the time to sit down and start writing it. So it was a long period of time from the first seed was put in the ground and until it actually became a book out of it.
Yeah. And I'm sure there are lots of people watching right now who are curious to know, I mean, how does the writing process actually work? You know, when you've had your first idea that will become the book, how do you divide up the work? Who does what? What does that process look like?
Well, I write a sentence and then I send it to Jørn, and then no, it's
well.
Go ahead, Jørn.
Yes, it's a very common question, and I used to say that being two writing a novel it's not like the half the work; it's more like it's the double. And I can't describe the process really, because it's so well, but the truth is, Thomas is writing. I think about Thomas as the main author. He starts writing, and then I cope up with him with some brilliant ideas. And
yeah, no, but it's true. I'm kind of the snowmobile in the project. I'm starting out. Mm-hmm. Writing, let's say, 3 or 4 chapters, send them over to Jørn. Obviously, we've talked a lot about what the books should be about before we start writing the first chapter. So we've had God knows how many Skype meetings and phone conversations and physical meetings as well, where we just brainstormed. But the actual writing is usually me starting off, sending chapters to Jørn, and then he kind of becomes the editor of that, sending it back, adding a few chapters, rewriting something, and it kind of goes back and forth between us until we are done with the first draft.
And what happens if you guys disagree on a direction you want something to...
editors.
Then I punch him in the face.
The only solution.
Yeah.
And then we do it.
No, but we've. No, but knock wood. We've never. Obviously, there are things that we need to discuss. Obviously, sometimes I can write something which Jørn doesn't necessarily think is the best way to go, and then we are very honest with each other. We say, I don't like this. I don't think he or she would think or do stuff that way. But I think what has been kind of like a key to our collaboration is that we've always, whenever we have seen something which we don't agree to, we have come up with another suggestion. It's not like we just throw the ball back to the other saying we don't like this. Let's see if we can. We write. I mean, every author writes himself or herself into a corner all the time. Happens all the time. But the great thing about writing a book with someone else is that you could just pick up the phone and discuss the scene. And two heads, two minds may think quicker or better than one. So that is really a great thing about writing with Jørn, obviously with the experience that he has. I mean, and we have some experience, the both of us, about coming up with ideas, coming up with ways to get ourselves out of that corner. So it's a very dynamic process, the whole thing.
Well, it's really working. I mean, I love this series so much, and I think it brings the best qualities of both of your writing individually and just combines them, which I just absolutely love. And now, before we run out of time here, I know we have a very special guest here tonight. We have your translator, Megan Turney, is here. So I think that Megan, if she can hop on screen here, I think we're going to ask her a couple of little questions about the translating process, which I know is super interesting and unique. So we'll see if Megan can pop on screen here and join us. And just one last reminder, we will do audience questions before we run out of time completely.
I think Sophie needs to do this. This is me coming.
Hi, Megan.
This is me, Karen. Hold on.
Oh, Megan's on screen now.
Is she on?
Yes, she's on.
Okay.
Hi, Megan. It's so nice to meet you.
Hi. Yes, and you.
Thank you for joining us. It is so great to meet you. And I just wanted to chat with you quickly because I would love to know, I mean, first of all, how did you get into translating, and what was your experience like working with these guys on the translation of Smokescreen?
So I have a background studying Norwegian and translation, and I've known for years I wanted to be a translator. I now work as a literary and commercial translator, and I participated in the National Centre for Writing's Emerging Translator mentorship last year.
Wow.
Which is actually where I met Orenda Books, and a lot of things fell into place, and I just so happened to be asked to do the book. So yeah, it was a lot of luck, a lot of serendipity, but yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and then the process was great. I just think having done this particular novel for my first full-length translation, it's like I didn't just get to do one, like translate for one author, I got to translate for like two of the great Scandinavian crime novelists as well. It's great.
That's amazing. Well, I've always had so much respect for translators, and I know it's such an art form along with being a skill. And I was curious if you could share with us, I mean, how do you approach the process so that you're not only conveying, you know, getting the words right, the meaning of the words, but also conveying the tone properly and capturing, you know, the original tone that these guys are writing and conveying that into English. How do you approach that?
So I read the book fully first, so I kind of like see what's coming along the line, so I'm not surprised. And then kind of work backwards. There's a lot of use of a thesaurus, just constantly looking for just the right word, and then lots of questions for the authors. A lot of questions with other translators, and turning to my flatmate or my family and saying, what's the word for this? I can't quite. So it's a huge collaboration project, essentially.
I think that is so cool. And Jørn and Thomas, I'm going to put you guys on the spot here too, but I'm always just so interested to hear from the author's perspective. I mean, what is it like working with the translator, and what is it like having your book out there in other languages?
It's first of all, it's a great honor to be translated, and to be translated into English as well. That is, I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. What is really great is when you have a translator which isn't afraid of asking these questions. Sometimes you kind of just get a copy of a book which has been translated. You get that in the mail, and you have had absolutely no contact whatsoever with the translator, and that always makes me a bit nervous, because there are so many nuances in a language, which I mean, unless you are a native, you wouldn't necessarily understand the meaning of that. So it's always great to have a translator who would just ask any question. It doesn't matter if it's silly or short or long, doesn't matter, just so that we are sure that everything gets translated as it was intended. And of course, we've had contact with Megan all along, and that's been great. It's a fabulous translation.
You did an amazing job, Megan. Obviously, I have not read the original, but I mean, you did an incredible job. I can tell you that much. I love the English version. So great work. And congratulations on your first full-length novel translation, too. That's just amazing.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone, again, who was involved in allowing me to do this. It's been an honor.
Well, I think we're going to go to some audience questions here. We've got a few to answer before we run out of time. Let's see. Oh, here's a fun one. Okay, Jørn, this one is for you. Miriam, I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, says, good day. Just wondering if Jørn can tell us a little bit about some of the items on his bulletin board behind him. Says a little off topic perhaps, but I think folks are curious to know, what is that like an inspiration board behind you?
Well, this is my murder room.
Oh, we may have lost Jørn.
No,
is he frozen? We'll go on to another question, and if Jørn comes back, he can finish telling us about what I think he said was his. Oh, Jørn, I think we might have lost you. Okay, I'm just going to go on to the next question here, but if Jørn comes back, we will go back to that one.
Stop video.
We're hearing one word every 10 seconds.
One word at a time. Okay, well, I think the next question, Thomas, maybe you can. Oh, oh, there we go. I think you're back, Jørn. Can you hear us? Okay, we're going to go on to the next question.
I've been here all the time.
Okay.
I was reaching out to show you some.
Oh, what is that? Oh, very cool. The Patrona Award. Amazing. I think we're going to go to the next question here. Thomas, maybe you can tell us. Becca wants to know, do you have any arguments when writing?
No, as I touched upon earlier, we don't argue. That sounds like something parents would say to the kids. We never argue. We're just discussing, right? No, we don't argue. We're not that kind of people, Jørn and me. not, you know, like confrontational in our personalities. It's just not our ways. And we are very respectful of each other as well, I think. I mean, we both know how hard this work is, how difficult it is to come up with good plots and good characters, and sometimes for sure the ideas that you come up with are really, really bad, but that is part of the process. Part of the process is to brainstorm and to just put everything on the table and see what we like. No, we don't argue. We don't do that. We discuss our way through the plots and the characters, and so far that has worked beautifully.
Amazing. Now we have, let's see the next question. Ooh, okay, so we have a comment in Norwegian and then a question in English. I'm gonna see if I can translate this. No pressure, because we have Megan here who could actually do this. But someone says, thank you for the interview, Jørn and Thomas. This person bought the book in Norwegian and enjoyed reading it. And they want to know, how long does it take to finish a book until you both agree that it's done?
You want to try, Jørn?
No, but it goes along with what you just told, that there's no big discussions of how the book is going to end or anything. But you know, when is a book finished? As an author, you would wish it was finished when you sent your first draft, but then it goes back and forward. So, but I think this smokescreen project, I think we use like 8 months on this in the total.
Yeah, what we have done with all the books, we've written 3. The third one isn't out in English yet, obviously. What we did with all 3 of them is that we started in August, and I think we were finished somewhere around April, maybe early May, with all of them. So yeah, let's say 8 months. But normally, I mean, that is a process that you cannot say that I write my books in 7 months or in 15 months. It just doesn't work that way, because each book is different. Each plot is different, and sometimes the plots are easier to piece together, and sometimes you really have to work super hard to find the solutions, basically.
Yeah.
So there's no one answer to that question.
Let's see. Oh, here's a really interesting question. Richard says that they loved the book and wants to know, how do you map out how Blix and Emma will develop over time? Do you have a multi-novel plan for them?
Did we have any plans for that yet?
Not really, and if you think they were struggling in this novel, you better wait for the next one. Then they're both really having a hard time.
You know, sorry I interrupted you, Jørn, but when we started out, the idea was basically that we didn't have a specific plan that we were going to write 3 novels together. We did the first one to kind of see how I mean, neither of us had written a novel with anyone else before, so it was kind of like a test to see if we could do that and how well it worked. And then of course we have an agent which think that it's a much better idea to sell 3 books than 1. So once we agreed, and that came on the back of the success of the first one. Once our agent said that, okay, now we're going to sell 3 books, then we kind of just had to commit to that.
Now we have, Megan, if you're game, we have a couple questions for you here before we close this event out. The first question is from Anne, and Anne would like to know, how long does it take Megan to translate the novel into English?
I think if I hadn't been given a deadline, I might still be working on it because there were just so many fun bits to mess with. But I think overall it was May through September, so a few months. Yeah.
And then someone else would like to know here, what's your favorite part of the translation process, Megan?
With this book in particular, there were so many interesting bits. There was just, I think, the perfect mix of some really funny comical aspects between the interactions and then some really hard-hitting bits. So it's hard to say, but I think the translation process in general, I would say, bothering people with questions about the book. So the authors, we had some funny conversations about particular word choices. Like there was one time, not to spoil anything, there's a discussion about an object in the early part of the book, and I sent them photos of like 5 different types of this object. I was like, is this what you mean, or is this what you mean? Or so and then asking people for words they can lend me for me to use. I just think the whole collaborative part of the translation process is my favorite part.
I love it. That's a great answer. And I think that for our very last question here, a very important question from Mary, who wants to know, are there going to be only 3 books in this series, or will there be more? And I think Mary is hoping there will be more.
Mm-hmm. We are going to write another one. We are going to start working on that after the summer break. So there will definitely be a book 4.
Great news. Well, cannot wait to read book 3 and book 4. And thank you all so much. And I think Karen is maybe going to pop back on screen here.
I am.
Hello.
I can't speak Norwegian on this screen, so I almost didn't come back. Oh, no, that was amazing. Would anyone else like to bottle Abby's energy?
It's easy when I get to talk to these amazing authors. I truly love this series so much and highly recommend. I mean, Megan, you did an amazing job translating it, and Thomas and Jørn, it's a fantastic book. So such a pleasure to get to talk with you both about it.
Thank you.
Oh, no, what a great job. Guys, no, really fantastic conversation. And I learned a lot, and including that there's a book 4, which is really important. Very good news, because we want more, definitely. We will be publishing book 3 for anyone that's interested next year. But I don't yet know the title. I'll alert Megan as soon as we do have the title. And we'll get going with that. But I mean, one of the amazing things that has come out of this pandemic is that we can have events like this, and we have people from all over the world who are tuning in. And I think it's something we have to consider in the future too, the fact that more and more people can access events. And there are lots of people here too that maybe don't find it easy to get out of their homes or to travel across the country. And if we can keep on making sure that we can produce some element of an online event, I think we should, because this has been really awesome. We've got Abby from America. Are you in Edinburgh, Megan, right now?
Yes.
Yeah. And then we've got our 2 Norwegian gentlemen here, and it's been a pure pleasure. And I'm really, really looking for my book, really excited to launch Smokescreen. And I will remind you that Warwick Books has signed copies, so both authors have signed book plates that are in these books, and that was no small feat to get that done, particularly with Brexit post. So you probably will get the only ones in existence ever.
Exclusive items. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. But thank you, Abby. What a brilliant evening. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Megan, for such a great translation. And thank you all for coming. It's for your great questions, lots of them. And it's been fantastic. And we hope to see you again at another event. And that's all for now.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Now we gotta wait for Sophie.
Oh, actually, guys, before we all log off, can we do a photo really quickly?
Yes.